Call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Gehrig?
Here.
Grinberg?
Here.
Pepcorn?
Here.
Strand?
Here.
Mahoney?
Here. First of all, I want to congratulate NDSU for winning its 8th National FCS Championship. Dean Brashani's here. Concerned if they have one more win, he'll have to have a finger transplant so he can wear all his rings. January is Cervical Health Awareness Month and an opportunity to raise awareness of how women can protect themselves from HPV and cervical cancer. HPV is a common infection that spreads through sexual activity and causes almost all the cases of cervical cancer. The HPV vaccine, regular screening tests, and follow-up care can help prevent cervical cancer. The HPV vaccine and cervical cancer screenings are available at the Fargo Public Health Clinic. Inspections. Building permit values declined significantly in Fargo in 2019, with the preliminary value totaling $381 million, down from the $514 million in 2018. However, in the last 5 years, building permits were exceptionally high, and 381 in 2019 is higher than any of the pre-2014 levels. 7 projects in 2019 exceeded $8 million in value, including the National Guard Readiness Center, the Blue Water corporate offices, Mosaic Apartments at 11th and 13th Avenue North, Mercantile Parking Garage, Grand 3 Apartments at 45th and 49th South, and the Spartan Nash Warehouse. We've had a good year. People continue to invest in the community. The inspection department reminds citizens to check for ice and snow on the roofs. The roof is designed to handle 35 pounds of square foot surface, depending on slope. Snow weighs about 20 pounds per cubic foot, depending on its moisture content, which means 1.5 inches of snow might be the maximal weight for the roof, and as the roof or snow melts, it becomes denser and increases weight. There are many companies around that will help you clear the snow from your roof if you need the help in doing that, but just bear in mind if it stays too heavy, it will cause some roof damage. Library. The library's Winter Readathon runs through March 1st, and readers of all ages are invited to read the chances to enter prize drawings. Police. Chief Todd had a big morning this morning. 7 new police officers took part in the swearing-in ceremony this morning here in the chambers. Chief Todd said it is fun to see the excitement on their faces and the pride in the families have as the new officers are welcomed to law enforcement profession and the Fargo Police Department. Officer Dave Cochran and his K-9 partner at Falco completed recently in the American's Top Dog and run a spot in the upcoming finale. Their win speaks to the tremendous amount of training each of the officers and their K-9 partners go through. The winning team from each week of competition will compete in a grand finale for the bragging rights and a $25,000 cash prize. Chief, does he get to keep that, or what happens with that? Don't know. Solid waste. The city partnered with Minn Kota Recycling in November to promote the Cans 2 Cartons Recycling Challenge. Minn Kota paid 1 cent per pound match to all aluminum cans collected at its redemption center and at the city's recycling drop sites during the month. The 1 cent match proceeds totaled $192, which purchased 549 cartons of milk for Got No Milk program in the Fargo Public Schools. Planning. The Fargo Human Relations Commission's annual Martin Luther King Day celebration will be held 6:30 January 20th at the Fargo Theater. This year's MLK Human Relations Award will be presented to community members who serve in Dr. King's spirit. This year's winners are Zamzam Abdi, Leonard Wells, and the Legacy Children's Foundation. There will also be music and dance performances throughout the evening. This is a free event and all are welcome. Here is a short video from the planning department about the upcoming celebration.
The ultimate vision is in their mission. It is to encourage young people of all kinds of backgrounds to engage in the community, to grow themselves academically, but also to grow themselves socially and emotionally, and provide them with the attitude and the environment and the encouragement to be successful, well-developed adults.
Other. At the last meeting, I announced the city recently broke ground on the Mercantile Project downtown, a private-public partnership between the city, Kilburn Group, and owners of the Great Northern Bicycle Company. We were not able to show the video of the groundbreaking ceremony last meeting, but we will be able to do. I think it's quelled up and ready to go. Clear more than ever it's been before that the city of Fargo is committed to creating and maintaining ample parking downtown in the areas for residents and visitors. This is a commitment that we had since we had a comprehensive study in 2015. We found at that time we had 3,600 parking spaces in the downtown area, and we had a deficit of 300 to 600 parking spots in the area at that time. So we were trying to stay ahead of it by building one ramp, maybe another ramp, and look what's happening now. We have 3 ramps that are coming up in the downtown area.
One idea that we had as a team was to consider how could we create some placemaking events at this property, right in the core center of our downtown, while we're going through the planning stages. And we are very excited about the placemaking events that have occurred in downtown Fargo since then. What gets us excited about these placemaking events that do occur is that sense of community that's created through all of these events. It's a great place for gathering, and we're excited to see how the best of those can continue in downtown Fargo. It's a great way for us to demonstrate how placemaking activities can occur.
As a hub of transportation, the Great Northern Depot spurred the development of such neighbors 100 years ago. So too has the planning for the new parking garage spurred the development of the projects we celebrate here today. And once constructed, I am sure we'll see additional projects to follow.
Trying to think of a word that I could use with my remarks this afternoon, and the word persistence came to mind. And so I'd like to expand on Mike's comments a little bit about the history of the Mercantile building. When the building was constructed, it once stood on Broadway at the corner of 4th Avenue and Broadway, was described in the Fargo Forum and the Daily Republican. The building will be brick, occupying the space of 75 by 130 feet. It will be 4 stories in height and will have a full basement. The building will be faced with pressed brick and will be trimmed with Kettle River red stone sand. Imagine the persistence back in 1909 to put such an endeavor in place. But again, persistence. And in the city, it takes 3 votes to make things happen. And persistence and consistency on the future of our city, a lot of important decisions are made often, and persistence matters at the city commission offices.
Now, Commissioner Grinberg, you want to fess up? You had some experience in prior life doing that, right?
Do you notice the smoothness of those joysticks?
We noticed the bounce. Item C, is there a motion to approve the order of agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of December 30th, 2019 regular meeting?
Second.
Any discussion or corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 21?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Grinberg? Gehrig?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Going to the regular agenda. We had an executive session. I'll start first with the first case. Commissioner Gehrig, you want to comment?
Do you want to discuss it all, or do you just want a motion?
Well, I can sure tee it up. So,
Okay.
yeah, there's litigation involving, brought against the city by Scott Kelsch, and the motion will be to approve, at least to the extent the city is involved in the litigation, to approve an amount and a settlement agreement.
All right, I'll move to concur in a tentative settlement in the amount of $63,000 and authorize the mayor to sign the settlement agreement admitting no liability or wrongdoing by the city upon presentation and finalization of the terms.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Gehrig?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. The other item, we had a memorandum of understanding that's been mediated with the Fargo Municipal Airport Authority, and we have a draft that we looked at in executive session. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Strand.
Mayor Mahoney, I move to approve the mediated settlement agreement, the City Airport Memorandum of Understanding, as presented in executive session, contingent upon the Airport Authority's approval of the same agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
We want to describe what the next step is if we approve this.
Go ahead.
Just
Sure, if you
Go ahead.
like, I can do it. Yeah, so just to kind of explain to the general public about it, again, the city's been involved, as everyone that's been paying attention knows, we've been in mediation with, and in negotiation with the airport authority regarding this MOU. There's actually been a statutory provision in North Dakota law that that allows parties to negotiate a settlement agreement, and as you could expect, they have to do it in a certain order. So we're acting upon this draft agreement tonight. The public is going to, there's going to be a public vote on it by the city commission, but the airport authority has yet to meet and confer and act on the same agreement. They do have a meeting tomorrow, and they may end up having approval at that meeting. We'll just see how it goes. They have an executive session for the same thing. But in any event, until the second of the two parties has approved it, the contents of the MOU are allowed to remain confidential under the North Dakota Open Record Law. And so that's really the status again, and the status will be after this vote, then airport authority will meet subsequently tomorrow. They're scheduled to meet, and we'll see what happens from that.
That answer it? Yeah. Commissioner Grinberg?
Just a comment or two, and whenever there's contention between two parties, obviously the ultimate goal is compromise and consensus, if you will. And so I'd first like to thank Commissioner Strand and Mayor for going forward with this in the spirit of that, with a compromise in mind. And tonight's motion I do plan on supporting based on what I've read in the agreement that's still confidential until the airport authority acts tomorrow. But I think it's also important to clearly distinguish that this is not about dissolution tonight. This is about an agreement that's been worked on between the two parties. And I know there's a lot of misunderstanding out there between actions here and a delusion decision and amending an agreement from 50 years ago. Tonight is the city's best effort to amend that agreement based on good faith negotiations.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Strand, anything?
No, Mayor, I'll wait until it's all signed and delivered.
Very good. Roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Garrick,
Yes.
Grinberg,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. General Haugen's in the audience, so you've got our support. Good luck tomorrow. Public hearings, item A is going to be withdrawn. It's a hearing of the dangerous building located at 18 8th Avenue North, continuing from regular meeting at 12/30 19th. This item has been withdrawn due to a licensed contractor taking out a demolition derby or demolition permit. If the owner should fail to demolish the building in time allowed by the permit, a hearing will be requested again. So then we're going to go to item 2, a zoning change. Oh, sorry, I need a
The move
motion.
to withdraw is 23A.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Grinberg,
Aye.
Garrick,
Yes.
Pepcorn, Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Item B, zoning change from multi-dwelling residential to limited commercial on portion of lot 7, 8, and a portion of adjacent vacated alley in Lane Subdivision Block 69 at Omer Subdivision. Approval recommended by the Planning Commission on 12/3/19, first reading of the rezoning ordinance. Donald Crest to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Crest with the Department of Planning and Development. As the Mayor has stated, this is a zone change here near NDSU. Here's University Drive here, 13th Avenue North. This property here is the Kappa Delta sorority house. These two properties are actually part of the whole Kappa Delta property here. And the request is to change the zoning of the property indicated here. We'll talk about that in a minute. That's the location here. A couple pictures from early December of the Kappa Delta house here and this building at 1206 13th Avenue North, which is the location of the zone change we're considering tonight. As you see, the zoning, there are two different zonings here. The pink is limited commercial, and the orange, whatever color that exactly is MR3. It's a multi-dwelling residential property. The plan here is that Kappa Delta is going to demolish this and rebuild a whole new facility here for the sorority, and they wanted to have the whole property under a single zoning. So they've requested this zone change to LC limited commercial, which is a very reasonable thing to do there, of course. and previously approved by the Planning Commission is a conditional use permit to allow group living, which is the land use we have for sorority houses and fraternity houses on this entire property. That's not something your commission sees. Those end at the Planning Commission, so that's already been approved pending this zone change. The property is within the Roosevelt neighborhood. Roosevelt neighborhood Representative Harold Thompson was at the Planning Commission meeting on December 3rd, 2019 and spoke in support of it. This designation here matches the Roosevelt neighborhood land use map designation of commercial with residential, so this fits right into the Roosevelt neighborhood plan. The applicant's representative, Tony Sager of MBN Engineering, is with us tonight and may wish to address the commission. Again, just a zone change from MR3 to LC Limited Commercial to match the adjoining property. And the Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this zoning change? Anybody wishing to speak? We'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Don, you're going to have to not compete with Commissioner Strand on the sweaters. No, this is getting a little.
Yeah, it's the same one I wear in the first meeting every year, sir. So
Oh, good to know. I'll remember that next year. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Grinberg,
Aye.
Garrick,
Yes.
Pepcorn, Strand, Mahoney,
Aye.
thank you, Commissioners.
Item 24, resolution authorizing the issuance of a taxable annual appropriation bond, Series 2020A Mercantile Parking Garage, approving certain actions, awarding the sale thereof, and approving forms of documents required in connection therewith. Ken Costin and Terry Heaton to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. It appears that though I missed the train on that video, because the final step of the process is to actually issue the bonds and pay for the project. So I'm sorry that I couldn't be a part of that video.
Certainly we could have a little competitiveness, bring the backhoe for your
I don't think I would fare well on that.
2-minute experience.
But anyway, we're here tonight to approve a resolution to authorize the issuance of bonds, long-term financing for the Mercantile project. All of the actions have previously been approved by you. We anticipate selling bonds on Wednesday, the 15th, and so things are all lined up, ready to go. I wanted Terry to go through the provisions of the parameters resolution, which describes the transaction so you know what the terms are. And then I had also asked her to review our credit rating that Moody's has assigned us a new credit rating. I wanted to make sure that that was clearly communicated to everyone so that you're aware of what our current standing is. So with that, I will turn that over to Terry. If you have questions, feel free to ask her. Just about anything. She's a financial expert and has served us for years, and we're pleased to have that relationship.
Thank you, Kent. Mayor Mahoney and members of the commission, the resolution this evening asks you to do a parameters resolution so that the bonds can be sold on Wednesday. This is for the $11,540,000 proposed taxable annual appropriation bonds for the Mercantile Parking Garage, and I was delighted to see the groundbreaking tonight. Just lucked out with the meeting. This is a 25-year term bond, and the repayment will come from parking authority revenues and some district tax increment financing district revenues as well, and has sufficient of coverage of 1.2 to 1.4 times most years, so there's sufficient revenues. The resolution that you're being asked to adopt tonight has certain parameters that have to be met. The first is that the bonds cannot exceed $11,600,000, and as I mentioned earlier, we're estimating that to be $11,540,000. The interest rate can't exceed 5%. We're actually estimating that to be closer to 3.738%. And the bond purchase agreement authorizes the mayor, the city auditor, and the director of finance to sign the bond purchase agreement with Baird, who is negotiating the transaction as underwriter. The rating, part of this was to have a rated transaction, and the rating assigned is to the city's GO bonds is a AA2 stable. The rating was a AA1 with a negative outlook. So for a couple years, the rating agencies, they look at several factors. They look at the operations, the finances, the market values, the debt levels, the unemployment, the tax base. And so they're continually looking at multiple factors and seeing where you fit in on the ratings as compared to other communities who have similar ratings. And they were indicating a couple of years ago that when they looked at all of the factors together, it wasn't exactly a fit. And they've made adjustments before. Before 2011, the city was a double A2 then. And then with some of the sales tax and the oil and so forth, they adjusted it to a double A1. And now they're looking back and saying probably fits at this time better in the double A2 category. And along with that, they have some comments that include the stable outlook. They talk about Fargo's growing economy, healthy operating reserves. They look at your post-retirement liabilities, your debt overall, and they assign that rating based on where you fit in those categories. And then the rating outlook is stable, meaning that they expect Fargo's growing economy and broad tax base will continue to provide for the revenue growth needed to accommodate the city's debt, and the city's financial position is expected to remain healthy, bolstered by strong liquidity and significant levying ability that you haven't necessarily tapped, so you've got that extra capacity. At the end, what we're looking at for this 25-year bond, based on all of that, is a tax, well, we call it an interest rate, or a TIC, and we had been estimating around 3.6, 3.7 in that range, and that's what we're hoping to get. And the good news is that, good or bad, or depending on how you look at it, is a year ago, and even though we thought we had great rates, the rates continue to decline and go down, interest rates. So a year ago, that same kind of a taxable annual appropriation bond was at 4.39%. So just because of market changes, this bond is expected to place about 64 basis points less than that, so around the 3.7 range. So they'll be offered at that on Wednesday, and hope to conclude then. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions by any of the commissioners? Mr. Pepcorn?
Can I ask you, are there some we've refinanced in the past? Is there a number that you look at and look at our current, and should we refinance some of those at this point, or is it still, you talked about it dropping a little bit more? Can you talk some about that?
Yes, we have routinely, quarterly, every half a year, brought forward refinancings, and a number of the issues that we've done have been refunding, and so we continue to monitor those. There isn't anything on the horizon right now because we've been very good at it, but we'll keep watching.
And just to make it clear, the city does that. That's your job as far as for the Kent Costin to look at opportunities to decrease interest rates, which the city does all the time. Commissioner Gary.
So for all the commissioners, I printed off this document kind of walking us through what was just stated about why our bond rating went down a little bit. You talked about debt levels compared to other cities. So is it fair to say then that bond sales like this negatively impact our bond rating?
Well, they look at it a number of ways. Some communities are not investing in their community, and you can also get an unfavorable review if your infrastructure isn't maintained. That's another category that they look at. So it's a balance. I don't think there's any one factor that I think is defining in this report. You know, they're continually looking at a combination of how much can you support, your tax base, is that growing? And you have great trends there. They're looking at the fact that one of the things that you have that's a little unique is you have a sales tax revenue that support many operations in the community. That's not always stable as a mill rate system, so there's a little volatility. And they're looking at the management, which is top drawer here. I mean, as far as the management, the processes, I think there's a multitude of factors, and so debt would be, if you have a lot of debt, that would be a negative. If you have too little debt, they might be looking at what you're not taking care of. So they all are looked at together. And I think the important thing is when they talk about your stable at this point, it's been moving within one category, which is not a big swing. And I think they're just trying to see where you're going to land, and to remember that all the other cities are constantly changing their numbers and ratios and percentages too. So sometimes this happens where they move things up and down a little bit.
Mr. Gary.
Yeah, I think our debt is important, the amount we're carrying, and I've made the case over the last 5 years or so that incentives have been harmful to the city of Fargo. And in this case, it's a TIF district, so we're taking out a loan to build a parking ramp paid back by the TIF. And I've made the case as to why that's bad for the city. To me, this is one more example. I think we're taking on more and more debt. We're building the third parking garage now. That's tens of millions of dollars in debt for that one type of project. And now we're finding out one more negative, that we're actually hurting our bond rating, which is important for the city of Fargo because it affects everything from the diversion to special assessments to everything that we do when we're borrowing money. So this negative outlook affects everything. And I think with the discussion we've had, especially with special assessments, this will affect that too, with the amount that we borrow and how much more expensive it will be for those special assessments for the people of Fargo.
And I just want to be clear, this is now a stable outlook. The negative outlook happened a couple years ago, and that's an indicator saying you're not quite in the right category. And so that now with the new rating, it's a stable outlook, and they have all the reasons that they see you as stable.
Right, but it was negative with a better rating. Now we're stable with a worse rating, correct?
That's, yeah, but they've stabilized, indicating this is where they were going to take you for the last couple of years, right?
Any other discussion? Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Grinberg.
Aye.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Garrick.
No.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. State Water Commission request for cost reimbursement for FM diversion flood project cost the amount of $1,954,126.65. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand.
Yes.
Grinberg.
Aye.
Garrick.
Yes.
Pipcorn.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. 26, applications for property tax exemptions for improvement made to buildings. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Garrick.
Yes.
Grinberg.
Aye.
Strand. Mahoney.
Aye. Item 27, application for abatement or refund of,
Move to withdraw.
move to withdraw. Is there a second?
Are we withdrawing 27?
27.
Second.
Any discussion? It's just a move to withdraw this at this time since the applicant asked to do that. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Grinberg.
Aye.
Garrick.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Strand. Mahoney.
Aye. Item 28, recommendations for appointments, reappointments to the following boards and commissions: Renaissance Zone Authority, Native American Commission, Metro Flood Diversion Board of Authority, and committees. You have my recommendations. Is there a motion?
Approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Garrick.
Yes.
Grinberg.
Aye.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. It's not 5:30 yet. You guys want to talk about something else?
It's got to be a record.
The motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you for your attention and good work tonight. Thank you.